How about preparing for sales calls? How about even writing down questions, statements, things that they will care about? Preparing to play in the game of sales is critical. A lot of us wing it. We think we know it. We know it, but do we know it at the right time? And are we doing it in the right way? The right way tends to really make the difference. Anybody can read a script. Anybody can present a slide, ask a question. How they do it is critical. When they do it, the timing, much like comedy. There are millions of comedy writers, very few great comedians. The comedian is simply reading what the comic writer wrote. So what's the difference? That's the art. I know a lot of people are talking about turning sales into a science, and there's elements of that, but it's both. To try and pretend that it's just science is crazy, and the idea of just thinking it's an art, you can think that way, but give it 20 years to the point where it becomes unconsciously competent. That's what we're going to be talking to you about today. Give you a different view of sales and encourage you to do a little prep and have an asset instead of just an activity. An asset is your questions. It is your statements. It is how do you get to the right time. It is evaluating the state that your client is currently in. Are they interested or just curious? Very big difference, and you should handle it very differently. Are you going for a commitment before they're ready? Guess what? You get an objection. When you're handling objections, that means you're moving too fast. And people say, well, this is the way to handle that objection. Well, once you move too fast, the way to handle an objection, it may work. But it's driving your car into the ditch, and how best to get your car out of the ditch? Well, good luck in that model. Hey, do you have sales questions? I got Brutally Honest Answers. That's my other podcast, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers. Daily podcast. Check it out. Make sure you subscribe to it, as well as the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. Got some great guests on there. If you're interested in what sales leaders think, or you want to become a sales leader and understand how to grow a company. And are you checking out Co-Video? Co-Video is crushing it. Video email is your game changer. You got to try it. Just try it. Turn the camera on. If you're not used to it, just practice with your own little smartphone. Because guess what? That is how you're connecting. Look at kind of the success people are having on LinkedIn, including yours truly. It's like game changer for me, and I think it'd be a game changer for you. But you got to try it. No risk. Let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end and give you an update on the courses. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, Brian, thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here. My moniker, Mr. Inside Sales, should say it all. I'm an inside sales consultant, and I've been selling over the phone my entire career. Started out at UCLA over 30 years ago, and every job and every part of my career has been selling over the phone. So not only cold calling and prospecting and qualifying prospects, but also then calling them back, giving presentations by phone, following up, and closing sales by phone. So that's what I've, as I said, have done my whole career, and that's what I now help companies and individuals do better now.
And how'd you get into it?
Good question. Good question.
That's what I'm here for.
Good question. People do like to know how I've done that. I probably, like most people, when I graduated college, I had a vague idea of going on getting a graduate degree, thought I'd work during the summer. My brother, of all things, he was an inside sales manager for an investment company. He said, hey, Mike, why don't you come and work with me over the summer, see how you like it, see how you do. I thought, all right, I'm not doing anything else. So I got into, at that time, you probably remember this. Remember that word, telemarketing?
I do. Yeah, that was a bad word at one time, wasn't it?
It was a bad word, yeah. I'm afraid that I helped give that a bad name.
Did you? You were one of the bad guys?
Well, yeah. But, you had to call people, right, and make contact with them. Anyway, I began my career selling over the phone, selling securities over the phone. I wasn't very good at it and was about to quit and go back to school. which throughout my early career, I vacillated between that thought often. But then I made some changes and I made a commitment, and I then did very, very well and have never looked back.
And what type of markets have you mostly focused on?
That's also a good question. Pretty much everything. And I like to tell my potential clients, and whenever someone calls me, they always say, well, do you have experience
landscaping?
do you have experience in, whatever, enterprise sales? Do you have experience in manufacturing sales? Do you have experience? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The basic skills and the basic tenets of sales in terms of building rapport, qualifying for need and interest and possible objections, obviously budget and other things, being able to present your product or service in a best practice way. These basic core selling principles, they go across industries. So I've sold everything, I like to tell people, from, as I said, I began selling investments over the phone, and I have sold everything from a very long process enterprise sale all the way both business to business and business to consumer. A couple of years ago, I even worked with a very big public company in, believe it or not, mortuary sales.
That's a fun sale, huh?
Well, yeah,
selling pre-need or?
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, I was working with grief counselors and one of the biggest, as I say, brands in the U.S., really the world. And the company flew me all over the country to work with their counselors to, whenever people attend a funeral, they usually sign a book and give information. And then those then became leads to, as you said, sell pre-need.
Yeah.
So I've worked in essentially every industry you can think of, and I've even sold landscaping. I've helped companies with the landscaping services and seeding and turf services sell their services over the phone too.
And why does this cold calling thing got such a bad name? I think everyone's got a different opinion on it, anywhere from love to hate. What's your take on it?
It's hard.
You're an honest man.
Yeah, it's hard.
I appreciate that.
There are many things to say about cold calling. First of all, let's define terms, because cold calling is an old term. And if you say cold calling to today's millennials or today's inside sales teams, they think you're from the dinosaur age. Because why? Well, now you've got social media. Now you're supposed to do your due diligence. Now you're supposed to have a coordinated outreach with emails and voicemails and warm calling, they call it. So the cold calling is now called prospecting. And again, it's a multi-purpose. There's a multi-purpose way of doing it. However, at some point, you still have to pick up the phone and make a call. Now, whether it's a warm call, cold call, answering an inbound lead, or quite frankly, there are industries that still make cold calls. They still have leads, and they pick up the phone and they call someone they don't know. And quite frankly, even if you're making a so-called warm call, if you've never spoken to that prospect before, you're still making a cold call. So why does it have such a bad name? Well, again, it's hard. People have resistance to salespeople in general, just like when you go into even a department store, even if you know what you want. If a salesperson comes up to you and says, "Can I help you?" your first response is what?
No, I'm just looking. Yeah,
exactly. I'm just looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me say one thing. So there's resistance. So there's a lot of resistance to cold calling, a lot of resistance to sales in general. When you're selling over the phone, it's even harder. But I tell you what's an interesting part of this being difficult. Again, the age of salespeople these days, they're more in the millennial age, and millennials are great, man. They're sharp, they're bright, and they're enthusiastic. They get it. They're quick, and they're awesome to work with. I love them. There's a special challenge for that group, and that is that they grew up primarily communicating in a different way, emailing, texting. They're not used to making phone calls even to their friends. So now when they're in the workplace, now we ask them to do something they've never really done, which is to make a phone call. So it's even harder for that population demographic to pick up the phone. They'd much rather, and this is something I hear from companies all the time, we need to make more calls, but my team would rather send emails. And so, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what they're used to. That's what they're skilled at. You and I probably, grew up that you couldn't get a date unless you called somebody.
Bet.
Today, you can almost get married without
times.
calling anybody.
There you go. That's a good analogy.
And so how do you diagnose this for a client? Anywhere from unscheduled, warm call, you know who they are. They may or may not know who you are. They're semi-qualified via demographics, psychographics, all the way to scheduling a call, meaning that you have a calendar link like we did for this podcast interview where, you and I didn't talk. We dealt through email, but now we're talking now.
Right. So your question, how do you diagnose that?
How do you diagnose what your strategy should be via what you're selling with one of your clients?
Sure. It's really straightforward, and I go back to what I like to call a best practice approach. Okay, so I'm really big on scripting out a conversation. And that doesn't mean I want to handcuff someone and then they need to read it word for word and be a robot. And that's their fear, right? What I try and do is first of all educate them that all of your sales team, all of your reps, they're already using a script. And if you don't believe me, just record what they say for a week, transcribe it, and what are you going to hand back to them?
It's pretty identical, isn't it?
It's a script. So now here's the problem. The problem is that most companies, what they do is they train their reps on the product, they train them on the software, they train them on the features and benefits, and then they say, okay, here's a loose email template, tweak it the way you want, and try and get in touch with people and sell them. Well, they don't give them a structured best practice approach. Number one, they've never usually learned it themselves, and they just don't know how to develop it. That's what I do. So here's the problem. You've got a lot of people out there, a lot of sales reps winging it, trying to leverage their personality, saying something different on each and every call. Well, that's exhausting, number one. It's highly ineffective, number two. And it leads to a lot of call reluctance and frustration because as soon as they get shot down with an "I'm not interested, email me, how'd you get my number? We've already got a vendor that handles that. We're no budget, wrong person, what's this call about?" So, get that for a week. Try that on for size for a week. And guess what? I don't want to pick up the phone. I'd rather email. And if somebody reaches back out, then I'll have a tepid conversation with them and hope for the best. And that's kind of how it goes. So how do I diagnose it? Well, I bring 30 years of experience to knowing how to place an outbound call, how to build rapport quickly, how to allow your prospect to engage, how to interact with them based on what you're hearing in their tone of voice. Are they annoyed that they answered the phone and you're on the other end? Are they willing to speak to you? Do they ask you how you're doing after you ask them how they're doing? So there are many, many, again, best practices to help them engage with prospects without sounding like a salesperson and to help equip them with the tools and the techniques they need to deal with that resistance. Oh, I'm just looking. Oh, just send me an email. What's this call regarding? We're already dealing with a company. We already have a vendor for that. Whatever you get, I can provide you, and what I do with my clients is I provide them with a best practice series of responses that, guess what, don't sound salesy and actually work. And that's what I advise them to do.
Well, can we go through maybe a sample of that? I think people would be
Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's say you're selling a piece of technology, a B2B sale, which this show is almost exclusively for. Mm-hmm. They don't know you. meaning they didn't convert on the website. You found them on LinkedIn. What would the recommended strategy be?
Okay, and that's a good question. And a recommended strategy, and I hinted at this earlier, I call it a touch point plan. And the strategy for that, if you're trying to reach someone, is to combine voicemail, email, and calls. But the way that I would do it is this. Let's say we have John Doe. John Doe is the VP of whatever marketing or the VP of technology there, and you're trying to reach John. The very first thing you do is you have to have what I like to think of as, again, a touch point plan that's going to last about 4 weeks. I'm going to attempt to reach John over a 4-week period. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call John. I'm not sending an email. I'm not leaving a voicemail. I'm going to call him. You want to try and catch John on the phone. So I'm going to call him 5 to 7 times and not leave a voicemail. I'm going to call him at different times, Monday at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. as soon as I get in, Monday at 5 p.m., Tuesday at lunchtime, Wednesday at 3 p.m. I'm going to call different times during the week and see if I can catch John picking up the phone. If I don't, at the end of that week or the end of making 5 to 7 attempts, then I'm going to leave a voicemail, very, very short voicemail, and then I'm going to follow it up with an email. And the email is going to always include his name in the subject line. So it's going to be John, just left you a voicemail. That's the subject line. And then the subject, then the body of the email is going to be John, sorry I just missed you. And then your message, and then something along the lines of, if I don't hear back from you, I'll give you a call again tomorrow.
And how about if you get them? How about if he does pick up? Yeah.
Great. I'm going to say, hey, John, I'm glad that I reached you. Didn't expect to reach you. This is Mike Brooks calling with ABC. How's your day going?
Going good.
Great. Good to hear. Brian, I'm sure you're busy. I'll make this brief. I was just on LinkedIn looking at your profile. I see you do blah, blah, blah. And you're engaged in blah, blah, blah. Is that right?
Yep. You got it right.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you sound like you're in a good mood today. How's the weather out there?
I'm kind of in a hurry. What do you have in mind?
No problem at all. Totally, again, appreciate you taking the call. I just wanted to get some information off to you and to schedule a call to go over XYZ. I understand you're in charge of the so-and-so and would make a decision on that. Is that still right?
We're really not in market right now.
No problem at all. I didn't expect you to be. Again, all I wanted to do was introduce myself. More importantly, give you a resource so that when you are in market, you'll know who to turn to. What's a good email to send you some information on?
Yeah, it's briangburns@me.com.
Terrific, terrific. And just out of curiosity, the last time you were in the market, did you opt for, and then I would start qualifying.
Okay.
And Brian, what I would do is I would take you as far as you would let me. In other words, I would ask as many of the key qualifying questions as possible. And then if you gave me the brush off again saying, hey, I really gotta go, I would say, hey, Brian, I want to appreciate you taking some time with me. I'll shoot you over the information. What I like to do simply is I'll give you a call back next week, just answer some initial questions. Again, I know you're not in the market right now, but again, things change. And when they do, I'd like to be able to be a resource for you. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Terrific. Look for the email. Again, thanks for taking the call. Enjoy the holiday season coming up.
So how about for the people out there that don't have the FM DJ voice like yours? Is that on purpose?
Am I putting that voice on for purpose?
Just the tempo, the relaxed.
Right. Okay, well, here's the thing. 2 things. Number one, one of the biggest points of having a script is that you can work on the delivery. You can match the pacing. You can speed up or slow down depending upon how receptive your prospect is. You can work on and concentrate on the delivery because you're not thinking about what it is you're going to say next. You've already got it written down.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
But how about do you purposely have the tempo and the pace slower so it doesn't feel pushy?
Well, I matched you.
Yeah. Okay.
I matched you. And that's what I recommend people do. You need to match the pacing of the person you're speaking with. So again, if they're in a hurry And you can hear they're really fast, and I'm going to speak up. I'm going to speed up a bit. I'm going to match your pacing. If you're kind of laid back the way you are, I'm going to match that.
Yeah. I'm laid back.
There you go. I can tell.
Yeah.
So I adjusted my style accordingly. Again, though, I was able to do that because I wasn't 80% of my brain wasn't filled with, gee, what am I going to say next and how am I going to handle that? I already know what it is. I'll give you a quick story. You probably remember the football coach, Don Shula, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Don Shula, for those who are young and don't remember this, but in 1971, Don Shula had the only undefeated team in Miami, 1971 Miami Dolphins. They won 17 games straight, including the Super Bowl. No team has repeated that since. So he was interviewed once. And they said, Don, you're obviously a great football coach. What's your secret? And he said, it's very simple. He said, we drill, practice, and rehearse every move, every situation, every reaction to those situations over and over and over and over and over until my players' reactions are automatic. He said, they can't think about what they have to do. They have to respond, react immediately. He said, if they get into a game situation and they have to think about what to do next, it's too late. It's already too late. And that's why scripting is so important. You need to know exactly what to say to everything you're going to get before you go in. You need to memorize it. So if someone says, I wouldn't be interested, no problem at all. I didn't expect you to be. That needs to be your automatic reaction. Now, here's the good news. And I write about this in my book, Power Phone Scripts. There's a secret of sales. And whenever I say this, Brian, people say, well, what do you mean? I said, well, really? There's a secret? I say, yeah, there is. If you want to be a top producer in your field, again, regardless of what your product or service is, regardless of how many phone calls or how many steps in the cycle there is, here's the secret of sales. 80 to 90% of the selling situations or the objections or the stalls or the put-offs that you get into are the same. They're the same. So the objections and stalls you get today on November the 30th or in December are going to be the same ones you get into in January, in July, in August of next year, and for the rest of your career. They don't change. So what's the secret of sales? The secret of sales is to script out a best practice response to the 80 to 90% of the same situations you get into over and over again. If you do that, suddenly your job will be easier. You'll be much more confident. You'll be able to overcome and deal with those responses and those objections easier. You'll be able to do just what I did with you, Brian, which is concentrate on my delivery and building rapport and being in sync with you rather than thinking up what it is you're going to say, because that only is going to frustrate you, make you tired, and make you wish you went back to school. You don't need to do that. Stop making it so hard on yourself. Invest the time on the front end so that you can automatically respond to the situations you get into over and over again.
And do you recommend that each individual build their own script?
Well, first of all, that's the job of the company, and that's the job of your sales manager. And many companies hire me, and they don't have those systems in place. And I tell them, if you have a sales team that are not performing well, then your responsibility, number one responsibility to them, is to provide them with this best practice approach, with the script playbook, I call it. If your company isn't providing you that, and my company didn't in the beginning, then it's up to you as a professional salesperson. You don't have a job, you have a profession.
Yeah.
And what you need to do is take it upon yourself to invest in the resources, invest in the time to put a script playbook together. You already know what the objections are that are coming. You know that they're going to tell you they don't have the budget. You know they're going to tell you they're not interested.
Yes,
and you know they're going to tell you to email you something. You know they're going to tell you that they already have a vendor. What was your objection to me? We're not in the market.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Isn't that what you get just 100 times a month? You know, if you don't have 2 or 3 proven responses to that to match 2 or 3 different personalities, then that's your fault. You need to correct that.
Now, you didn't push that hard there. Now, is that contextual? Obviously, it's contextual, but what's your recommendation as far as pushing hard?
Okay, you need to read and react. Read and react. I do. I use a lot of football analogies. I love pro football.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm getting that.
Well, why is Bill Belichick so successful, regardless of what you think about him? He's successful because he has a system. He always says, do your job. Everybody, if you look at his team, they perform perfectly. They may not be the greatest athletes, right? But what they do perfectly. They do well. So, you need to read and react. What did I do with you? I read and reacted. So what I got from you was I got that you weren't being real aggressive. I got that you weren't being real negative. I got that you would let me send you an email. I reacted to your not market response I thought an effective way, and it taught me that you were somewhat open, but that I wasn't going to push you too far because you'd already told me what was what. But I had a ready response to go around that, and I was able to then further the conversation and set you up with an option that you agreed with, which is, hey, it may not be in the market now, but things change. Do you mind if I be an option for you for when things do? You bought that, so that taught me what my next steps are, which is to gently send you information and gently set up another call to see if I can go over it with you again without pushing, without saying, hey, I'm going to try and close you. Rather, I'm just going to try and be a resource for you. And you were buying all of that, so I was soft.
Okay. But I'm sure you have clients that want to push a lot harder, to react more aggressively. Yeah.
Perhaps, but it's not going to work if the prospect isn't buying, and that leads, you're just going to frustrate yourself. I mean, here's the other thing about sales that most salespeople don't get, and I try and really, whenever I do a training, and I did this just in Canada just last week, I try and give them the context for sales, right? And let's normalize and let's really talk about the process. Let's just pick a number, out of 10,000 prospects that you've identified are likely candidates for your sale. I always ask companies, in fact, I'll ask you this, you've been in sales forever, out of 10,000 candidates, again, companies that perhaps use your product or service, how many of those do you think, if we speak to all 10,000 of them, how many of them, honestly, do you think will actually turn into a sale? Given your experience, Brian, what would you guess?
I think most people would answer 3 to 7.
Out of 10,000 prospects?
Out of 3 to 7%.
3 to 7%. Okay, that's great.
So 70, 30 to 70.
Okay, so and I would agree with that. So now what this turns into is your job isn't so much to try and push, right, 9,930 people to do something they're never doing anyway.
Boom.
Instead, your job is simply to go through 10,000 people and find the 30 to 70 people who are going to actually be interested and open. And you don't have to push those people. They'll have a conversation with you. They'll allow you to send information. They'll let your sales process be easy. The problem most people have is they're banging their heads against the 9,900 people who aren't buying.
That's I'm 100% aligned with you, because what you hear is the numbers game. You're just playing the wrong numbers game.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because it is.
Yeah. And and I'll just say this. I developed a concept many, many years ago. Everybody tells you to qualify prospects. I like to turn that around and say your job is really to disqualify.
And that's pretty easy to do too today, more than it was, 20 before the internet, where you had a list, and that list was static paper. It wasn't anything you could click on. I mean, today you can find out people's incomes, how much they're paying in property tax, their political affiliation, a whole lot more, what kind of car they drive, who they voted for. And when you have that psychographic, you can kind of prioritize them.
Yeah, agreed. In fact, I think sometimes we have too much information.
We do. Yeah, that's why we need AI. Hey, should you have something written down? Why not be that 1% of the salespeople that really do that? That get the stuff out of their head onto paper, that build their own, what I call map to money. Some people call it playbook, but playbook is kind of a situational based thing, versus a map to money is the whole game. And if you're good at certain situations, that's good. but you got to play the whole game and understand where you are and where you need to go. The A levels, the people who are really crushing it, understand that there is a game that they're playing instead of this ping pong. Too many people treat it like phone tag. Oh, here's my message. Your turn. Call me back. And here's the proposal. Let me know. Give me an update. Oh, the updates, you want a better proposal, or you want more time, or you want this, you want that. Instead of understanding and anticipating what can go wrong and how to prevent it, how to control and drive the deal. This is what we really need to do in B2B sales today. Did I mention Pipedrive? Are you checking that out? Get 60 days free with Brutal Truth coupon code. Check it out. They're cooking. I'm helping them with their content, and the product is evolving insanely fast. But check it out, pipedrive.com. Meanwhile, back to me. Let's talk about you and closing more deals. How do you get better in sales? Typically, this is the trajectory I see most salespeople go. They start off and they work their butt off, and they get some success. And if they get enough success, they think they are good enough, or that everything that goes bad is outside of their control. You've got to look at sales much more like the way doctors and lawyers look at their career. What do they call it? They call it a practice. And they're much more open-minded. They don't think, a good doctor or a good lawyer doesn't think they're perfect, doesn't even think there might be even better than others. They're competitive, but they know that there is no destination, that they have to get better because in their world, the competition is insane. You're competing against the brightest minds and the most challenging of situations. In sales, the better you get, the more money you make. Now, you can blame anybody you want, but if you don't close the deal, that's the only thing that matters. The commission on a lost deal is zero. The commission on a no decision is zero. Guess what? If you could convert more of them, if you could focus your time on the ones that can close, will close, and if you do, MacGyver-like activity will close, then that is a good use of your time. And how are you going to do that? Are you getting the resources out of your manager, your enablement team? Yeah, they're teaching you about the product. They're teaching you about some skill, which is good, but are they coaching you? Are they helping you? Can you really open up with them about a deal and what you're concerned about, what you want to prevent, what you are overlooking? Because what is our nature? Our first priority is to survive. So we don't see anything that isn't imminently dangerous. If something's dangerous for us a month from now, we don't care. If it's dangerous right now, that's all we care about. And this is what sales is about, is that it's totally counterintuitive to how humans operate. We have to be proactive. We have to plan. We have to think through the alternatives. If we don't, we're reacting. And we're acting like service people, not salespeople. Service people make 1/10 what a good salesperson makes. Where do you want to be? And how are you going to get there? Do you have a daily plan, a way, a system? And wouldn't it be nice to leverage off of somebody who's been through that, who came back from several of those wars and seen the movie that you're currently watching and knows how it ends and knows how you can become better and shows you the cheat codes? That's what this is all about. That's what the course is all about. So go to b2brevenue.com, and if you're in the complex sale today and you want to get more meetings or you want to close more deals, pick the course. Start the conversation, get the meeting, or closing the complex sale. You get a year access. You can pay monthly or all at once. It's not a membership. It's a commitment. So what you get with that is 100% access to the content day one. And the content is compounding. There's one-on-ones that are being put in there every day. There's office hours put in every other Friday. You can ask questions anytime you want. You can get one-on-ones as often as you want. You can talk through deals. You can plan your strategy. You can get feedback from somebody who's been there and done that. Get a second opinion, a second set of eyes on what your approach is. Ask the questions that you know you need to ask and be totally anonymous. So go there, check it out. We can talk it over. There's two links, one to the course and one to talk with me. And pick the one you'd like, and we can chat it up, see if it's the right match for you. If you really want to take your game to the next level in B2B sales, you got to do it. Or, yeah, you can save the money and lose the commission. That's what I say. It's your choice. You're going to do one or the other. That's what it comes down to. I'd rather make the commission. Taxes get higher, but, a nice car, bigger house, early retirement. I'll take that. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Check me out on LinkedIn and YouTube, Brian Burns Sales on YouTube. I put my videos up there. Just subscribe there. Or you can come by my LinkedIn page. Just follow me. I've got a ton of connection requests, and I've run out of connections. So it's best just to follow me. Because if I don't see you like, comment, or share the content, I don't know who you are. And I just, I'm a busy man. Okay? We'll see you next time.